leave meeting.
Bye.
See ya.
Oh shit. All right. I have no plans for this other than to just shoot the shit with you. So
Hell yeah.
let's do
Best way to be.
it. All right, I'm just gonna start then. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to It Is What It Is. Still Amanda, still your host. And I promised you a repeat guest today. So she doesn't need an introduction, but allow me to introduce my very good friend, Becca, aka DJ Silver Mohawk, aka Bex McSweats, aka Rebecca Plays Too Much Stevens, Fatevens. And I'm sure there's some other nicknames I'm forgetting. What's up, Becca?
What's up? How you doing? How's everybody doing?
It's been over a year since you've been on here with me.
Yeah, wasn't it June was a year ago?
Yep, because it was Pride Month last year.
Yeah. Dang. It's a long time.
It is. A lot of things have happened since then. A lot of stuff has changed since then. You live somewhere different. I live somewhere different. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, for real.
So let me do my book poll and then we can get into it.
Yes. This is my favorite part.
Clarity and connection today. This is long, but it's the one that wanted to be read. So when desire combines with tension, it morphs into craving. Attachment is when you start craving things to be a certain way. Craving is an extreme form of desire that quickly attaches to different ways of feeling and the object/situation/people that produce these feelings. Attachment is also when you try to place restrictions on the unexpected and natural movements of reality. It's a heightened form of the desire for control. As the Buddha put forth in his teachings, craving itself gives birth to attachment. This tense form of clinging to what we crave not only causes much mental struggle, tension, and dissatisfaction, but also clouds our ability to objectively observe what is happening within and around us. Wanting and craving are not the same thing. Simply wanting is a natural pursuit that focuses our energy. Craving occurs when wanting deepens and becomes filled with tension or stress. The stress worsens when we do not succeed in getting the thing we crave. Craving is ultimately the source of our mental struggle and dissatisfaction. Even when our attachments are successful in molding reality, we still find ourselves dissatisfied because craving is an endless pit. Once the sensation we pursued has passed, the mind will return to craving more because craving is what it knows best. So, trying to think about that in the context of what we're going to talk about today. Let me just say what we're talking about today first. So we're sort of talking about self-worth and healthy relationships after you've been in some bad ones. And I guess what I took away from that was, number one, I think it was a call out for me just with what's going on in my life in general. It's just accepting things as they are, knowing that there's nothing that I can do to change the situation, and accepting things as they are. But also, I think that when you are in toxic relationships, you want so badly for that person to be who you want them to be. And sometimes that makes you, or a lot of times for me personally, that makes you forget who they actually are. Really incapable of seeing who they actually are until something happens or you have some sort of realization and you're like, oh, there's a big difference between who I want for a happy, healthy, adorable marriage that you're in now with Regina.
Yeah, so it really was going on like the same time that we got to know each other and were becoming friends. So I had been with my previous partner for almost 10 years, and that was a very toxic, unhealthy relationship that I couldn't see past my own nose about. Everybody else could see it, but I couldn't, obviously. And Regina and I first met while working together at the Hanover County Probation Parole. And she likes to tell the story how I went and talked to her at first and all this stuff. And I told this at the wedding, and I was like, you know what, you've intimidated me a little bit. And I was a little upset because my mentor had left and you took her place. And finally, our friend Anna was like, you need to go talk to her. She's really nice. So I just walked in her office and sat down. I was like, what's up? Yeah. So it kind of went from there. Us just like talking, hanging out, starting to like do some shift work together. They were like, oh, let's hang out outside of work. And um we were both in really bad relationships, and I was about to get married to the other person. And then I realized that I couldn't do it, that it wasn't fair to me, it wasn't fair to the other person, because I truly didn't love them. And I didn't want to spend the rest of my life like that. So I left that person, and
And that, like that, you called it off not long before it was supposed to happen, right?
less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, because
Less
I
than two.
remember myself and some of us from basic training were all invited. And I think you just texted us a group text that was just very vague, like, hey, wedding's off. I remember texting our friend Alex and being like, okay, what do we do? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it was like about a week and a little over a week and a half before the wedding, and I was just like, I cannot go through with this. And I literally just left everything that I had from like previous, that I had it like material wise, emotional wise, and just left. The only things that I took with me were like 2 bags of clothes and my dog. Um, yeah. But Regina was very kind to let me stay with her while I was transitioning. And so I stayed with her and her previous partner for about a couple months, until I could get on my feet. And then I moved to my own apartment, and things just kind of like, yeah, that was a rough couple of years, because that was the first time I had cancer and all that stuff. And Regina was there for me the entire time. She was like my person I could count on. And it was rough, for about a year and a half. It was really rough because I was going through a lot of depression, wondering if I made the right decision about leaving my previous relationship. It's just hard after almost 10 years to just kind of pick up and start all over again with basically nothing. But Regina was there to encourage me and say, hey, you might be feeling down right now and like you didn't make the right decision, but just keep your head up, and you did what was best for you. And then things kind of just, I don't know, like kind of fell into place because her previous relationship ended. And so I was able to be there for her during that. And then like a year later, not maybe around a year later, we were like, oh, well, we really like each other. Let's hang out some more. And then I just realized that I fell in love with her. I fell in love with her a long time before I even realized it. She was just a great person, and very kind to not only me, but other people in general. Just one of those people that just lights up the room when she comes in. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. So I can't finally confess my feelings to her. And she was like, oh, I think I feel the same way. So yeah, so me and my fantastic personality and great sense of humor, I kind of swooped her in at that point. And we started dating, and for me, it's been happily ever after since we started dating. So, and that was, gosh, we started dating in mid to late 2018. So, and then we got married in 2021. So, I mean, it's just been a great ride in the last 4 or 5 years.
At what point during all that did y'all move in together?
We actually, we all moved in because me and her and our friend Jack, and then Regina's mom and younger brother all moved into this huge house in Leland, because we were like, you know what, things are starting to get expensive. We're going to save some money. So we all just rented a house together. And so at some point during our stay there, I moved from upstairs to downstairs.
Yeah, because y'all weren't.
In the spring, and then later that summer it was like, oh well, we like each other, let's do this.
Yeah.
I was like, plus you have the nicer bathroom. So,
Right. I don't know why this is popping into my head, but you guys had a Halloween party where I won the costume contest. But I guess it was one of the guest bathrooms, you had hung up this like fucking ghoul thing, and like I turned the lights on and it scared the shit out of me. And I know that's exactly what it was intended to do, and it got me. But
yes, that's the one that Alex dressed up as a Dementor and from Harry Potter, and her wand was a stick.
And I think Josh was Bob Ross. He made a brief appearance.
Yes, and I think Regina was Hermione Granger, if I'm not mistaken. And then I was, I didn't fit with anything that anybody was doing. I did my own thing. I had like this, I had this steampunk costume on, and it was fun. I still have the hat and vest.
Yeah, that was a good time, despite my company at the time. And do you know, I don't know if I ever told you this, but that same weekend, it was actually the next day. I had to work that Sunday. That was the time he cheated on me before our wedding. It was that same weekend. You live and you learn, right?
You live and you learn, you live and you learn. My previous partner cheated on me with a man. So. Like, what?
Make it make sense. I didn't know that. And
yeah.
I didn't really know you at all through that relationship. I guess you were still with her when we were in basic, and wouldn't have been too long after that that she called off the wedding and left. So I think our friendship has certainly gotten closer than it was at the beginning. And I definitely credit some of that to Regina. I think even though I was friends with you first, she just has a way of getting people together.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. She's kind of like the glue that kind of like holds everything together. And she's definitely the glue that holds me personally together, because if one little inconvenience happens that I don't know how to handle, I will have a meltdown, and she's definitely there to be like, it's okay, this is what we need to do. She's the troubleshooter. And I'm the one that keeps it fun and has the grandiose plans and all that stuff, and but she's definitely the level-headed, it's going to work out, this is what we need to do type person. And I'm like, yeah.
So let's back it up a little bit, because you mentioned that after you left your ex that you had those thoughts of like, did I make the right decision? And I can relate to that a lot, because when I left Jamie, I had those days where like, was this a mistake? But did you have those moments sort of after leaving where you sort of romanticized the way things were? And I think it's easy once you leave the situation to get caught up in remembering the good times,
Yes.
and giving that person more credit than they probably deserve.
Absolutely. Especially like the first, I would say like 6 months, the first couple months, it was daily like, hey, did I make the right decision? I've turned my life upside down for what? For me to be very unhappy right now, as far as being alone and giving my pretty much everything up that I'd already established in life. But then there would be times that bills came in the mail that was stuff that I hadn't purchased, that I was having to pay for, having to repair my credit. Yeah. And for things that, I didn't do. And then it was a reminder of, oh yeah, you did the right thing. And then, I thought it was very healthy, for me. And I think it's very healthy for other people after they get out of those toxic relationships to spend some time with themselves and learning themselves. And, because especially if you've been with a person for a significant length of time, your needs have changed, from when you first started that relationship with them to now, when you're out of it. Because before I started dating my ex, I felt like I was very independent. I was very financially stable and, made good decisions. And then it was like everything went to shit in 10 years. And I mean, I blamed myself a lot because I was like, I did it because I was blinded by love. And I just wanted to make the other person happy. But then it was like, okay, well, now I've got to buck up and do all these things to be back in a situation where I'm happy with my whole life and not just, part of it. And so it took a long time to get to that stage. And it was, like I said, the first, I would say 6 months, it was, did I do the right thing? And then I would look back and be like, yeah, there's a reminder. And over time, it has faded a lot. And then after Regina came into my life, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely did the right thing.
Yeah, I definitely had moments of remembering there were some good parts.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I clung on to probably a little too much is there's this one year, I don't know if you remember this or not, but he planned a trip for us to go to Charleston for Valentine's Day and like planned everything and paid for everything. And it's very unlike him to plan or pay for things.
Right.
But it was a really good trip, and that was something sweet to do. But like we were together for almost 5 years, and there weren't really any other things that I could grab onto of like nice things that he did for me, thoughtful things that he did for me.
Right.
And one of the things that I was surprised about after I left him, though, is that I think before I left, I was struggling with the idea of being divorced. And I think I had even some moments afterwards where I was like, oh my God, I'm not even 30 yet and I'm divorced, or getting divorced. But I didn't have I had a semi-religious upbringing, but not enough so that it would make me feel like divorce is the end of the world. And also, like, even if I did feel that way, almost everyone in my family had been divorced, grandparents, parents. So like,
Join the club.
Yeah, join the club. And like, it happens. But I definitely struggled with that a little bit of like, did I do everything that I could do? And I think the day that I left, I knew that I did everything that I could do, but afterwards I struggled with like, should I have tried harder? But I don't think any amount of effort on my part would have changed anything.
Right.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I think that whenever someone gets to the point that they're ready to leave, that they know in that moment, and they're strong in that moment. But then after the dust is settled and they have time for everything to like kind of like wash back over them, that's when they start doubting themselves. And I think that happens in a bunch of situations like that. And I think, I wasn't actually married to my ex. I was close to it. But, and I hope she doesn't mind me blowing her up here, but Regina said that she felt like she was more attached to the idea of the relationship not working out, the actual marriage part not working out, not attached to the person. So, and I was like, that makes sense. I was like, that absolutely makes sense. So yeah, so that's what I was going to say when I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I had somewhere else that I was going to go and I've lost it. So this was maybe back in August of this year. My friend Tyler, who I've been friends with since I was in middle school, her dad is a tugboat captain. So sometimes when I go to visit, he's not there, but this time he was, and he and I were catching up, and I was telling him about my relationship with Sam, and I said something to the effect of like, I've done a lot of work on myself, and I have self-worth now. And he said something to me that just truly crushed me, and I still think about it today. He's like, Amanda, you always had self-worth, you just sacrificed it. And
oh man,
yeah. And I think it can be part of your upbringing, but it's really just part of society in general that pushes this self-sacrificing for the people that you love, and not that you shouldn't, not that sacrifices aren't made for the people you love, but there has to be some sort of line where it becomes too much and you've lost yourself for the sake of this other person. And I think I spent, my entire life up until this current relationship sacrificing things. I didn't know that I could have needs or wants. I didn't know that I could vocalize those in relationships and not be made to feel like shit about it. For whatever combination of things that taught me that, I learned that you self-sacrifice even to the point of not knowing yourself and not being connected to yourself for the sake of maintaining a relationship. And I don't really know what the solution to that is on a societal level. But I think part of the solution is that we're becoming a little more accepting of different types of relationships, not just in terms of, gay, trans, whatever, any sort of thing like that, but different co-parenting situations, or people that are together and they never want to get married, but they are committed to each other like they are. Or I saw something the other day on some sort of social media about people either having separate bedrooms or living separately. And I think for a long time, and even still now, it's been romantic relationships are men and women only, and they must have children, and they must get married, and they must stay together until they die. And I think because people are starting to embrace their authentic selves more and really get clear on what it is that they want and need in life and relationships, that things are looking different now. And we're starting very slowly to where people are starting to accept those different ways of being in relationships with people. I think the point of all of it is to do what feels right to you. And sometimes that means you're staying in a relationship that has run its course, but you're just not ready yet. Because that, for whatever reason, still feels, maybe not safe is the right word, but still feels right to you. So I don't know where I was going with that tangent, but let's talk about what it's like to be in a healthy relationship.
Well, first of all, when you come from a very toxic relationship to a healthy relationship, you're like, what is this? is this real life? Do you have a lot of questioning of why do I deserve this? And that was a big thing for me and Regina when we first started dating. Was I was very self-detrimental to myself, and would tell her all the time, I don't deserve you, you deserve better than me. And I would get down on myself and be like, oh my God, you're gonna leave me. And I mean, we would just be sitting there watching a movie. Yeah,
It
she
really
was like,
sneaks up on you.
it just sneaks up on you and like grabs you by the neck and starts strangling you. Yeah, so it was hard, very hard in the beginning, because like you, I had never had someone that cared about my wants and needs before.
Mm.
And she and I've had this discussion a lot of how we're both givers. So it was very hard in the beginning of taking,
Mm.
because we weren't used to taking from another person. But we have finally, after 4 to 5 years, started establishing, a healthy amount of giving and taking from each other, because we feel safe with the other person to do that. And we feel encouraged by each other to do that. But before, it was like, I give everything, and I expect nothing in return, and I got nothing in return. And I wasn't allowed to expect anything in return because I wasn't deserving of anything in return. That's the way I was made to feel. That wasn't true, obviously, but that was the way I was made to feel, is that the other person's wants and needs and their feelings were leagues above what mine were. So coming into this very healthy relationship that I'm in was very difficult. And I had to talk to my therapist about it a lot. Like I probably spent 4 or 5 full sessions just talking about that alone. And then every time that I have a session, I talk about it at least for about 15 minutes. Just as a kind of refresher thing for me of, hey, I deserve this. I'm a good person. And we truly love each other and we're good for each other. And so, I mean, even simple things of, when she walks into the kitchen, she'll ask me if I need anything. And at first I was like, no, I'm good. And then literally when she sat down, I would go in and fix myself something. And she'll be like, I just asked you if you need anything. But like now, if she asks me, I'm like, yeah, can you bring me a drink? Or hey, can you bring me something, whatever it is. And so it's just like, you don't realize how bad it is until, some time has passed and you are in a healthy relationship and you're like, oh, wow, why am I like this? Really, why am I like this? And I asked my therapist that, I was like, why am I like this? And she was like, well, Becca, she said, things have happened in the past 10 years that have traumatized you psychologically. And she was like, your brain is just reacting as it would before. And she was like, you have to retrain your brain, just as you retrain your heart to love again. And she was like, you have to retrain your brain. And I was like, yeah, this is gonna take some time. So yeah, so I mean, I'm way better than I used to be. Way. And Regina tells me that all the time. She's like, you've grown so much, you've come so far. And but I mean, I still have sometimes where I'm just like, do I deserve this woman? And then I'm like, you know what? I'm a badass bitch, and I deserve her. Yes, I deserve her. So I mean, it's really weird to go from that toxic feeling down in the dumps all the time, like, well, shit, I'm just somebody's slave, and not even their love slave. I would be okay with that,
just the slave.
just to get in the kitchen and make me a sandwich slave.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah. So, yeah, and then go into somebody's whole world, and it's like they can't get enough of you, and it's just like, I don't know what this is, but over time it's like, okay, I know what this is, and I'm gonna start reaching out for it. And then after a while, you're like, yeah, I'm into this. I'm into this. Somebody loving me for me, and me being able to love them back, and it being an equal partnership. And when I tell people, usually people sarcastically say I'm living the dream, but when I say it, I truly mean it. Like, I'm living the dream, man. I have a great marriage. Not to say that we don't have our ups and downs, because we truly do, just like anybody else. But the difference is that when we have those moments, I know it's safe to talk to her, and tell her how I'm really feeling. And we troubleshoot together about how we want to manage the situation. Whereas before it was like I couldn't express my feelings whatsoever. And it was the other person's way, period. There was no their way or the highway. It was their way. Like it had to be done their way. But now it's like, okay, how can we compromise? How can we make it through this situation, and come out on the other side? And our motto has always been better together. So that's kind of our thing, better together. And that was kind of like one of the things at our wedding, is that we're just better together. And I truly feel like we'll always be that way as long as we keep the mindset of marriage is work, relationships are work. And if you're both not willing to put forth the effort of waking up every day and making the other person better than they were the day before, while also making yourself better than the day before, then you're probably not with the person that you need to be with. And sometimes it might be that you're not with any person. Sometimes it's like, hey, I need to be with myself and do what's right for me, and not be in a serious relationship, or not be in a relationship at all, until I know things like I know like my self-worth and stuff like that. And then honestly, I've just got to where I tell people, if somebody makes you feel like shit, you need to move on, because that is not real life. That is not what you deserve. And if they make you feel like shit, that's a problem that they have internally, not because you really are doing something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. A couple of things that have popped into my head while listening to you. First of all, I think there's this idea that you have to be fully healed and like just all put together before you can be in a serious, lasting relationship. And I certainly understand the value, like that period of time that I spent in between the first guy I dated after I left Jamie to being with Sam now. It was about a year of time where I was on the dating apps, but I don't think I actually like met up with anybody in that time. And I was really just hanging out with myself. So that's time that I'm really grateful that I had. But I think there was only a certain amount of safety that I could create within myself. And I think whether it's a romantic relationship or it's friendships like ours, like you need safe people to be able to continue doing that work. And I think one of the things I didn't realize was happening so much in my marriage, especially, was that's not happening now, is the things that I would say were later weaponized against me.
Yes.
And there's been times in this relationship where I sort of brace myself for that to happen, and then it doesn't. And I'm like, oh, that's not happening here.
Why am I clenched up?
Yeah, what's going on? And there's been some like interesting / I would even say weird things that I've noticed about myself since being in this relationship. And one of them is when I was married, I did everything. Like I managed our money, I paid our bills, did the shopping, did the cooking, I did everything. But I preferred to grocery shop by myself. And I didn't notice this until like Sam and I went shopping together for the first time. If I were shopping with Jamie and I forgot, like I was in the cold section and I forgot something in produce and had to go back, he would have been pissed. And if I did it more than once, we would have had a fight. He's like, I'm just going to go sit in the car. Like this is taking too long. And so the first time that Sam and I went shopping together, I noticed that like clenching of like, it's like, why am I so anxious right now? Like, he was fine. Like he literally did not give a shit that I was forgetting things on the other side of the store. He was having a great time. He's like, I love grocery shopping. But me internally, like I was even sweating at one point, which is not uncommon for me. I sweat a lot, but I was so anxious that I was sweating of like just waiting for that outburst and waiting for him to leave me alone in the store. And that was one of those moments where I had to be like, I'm having a reaction to something that's not actually happening right now. But even something as little as that, of like grocery shopping, like it's just crazy. And I think one of the other things I've noticed is when things would come up with family, that would be met by Jamie with like, first of all, he would tell me like, why do you worry about this? Like he thought that he did not worry about anything that was going on in his own fucked up family. And that meant he was just above it. Like, it doesn't bother me. It's fine. But if you're having to convince yourself that something doesn't bother you and say it out loud that many times, like, it's probably bothering you. So
Right.
His reaction to me, and really it wasn't just family, but just anything of like, hey, this happened with this person and this is how I'm feeling. It was like, oh, here we go again with this shit. Or like, why are you so worried about it? Like, why can't you just let it go? And like, you can only get that reaction from someone so many times before you're like, okay, I can't bring stuff to you because you're going to make me feel like shit for having it. And it's things like that where similar situations happen and I expect that reaction out of Sam, and that doesn't happen. And the other thing is, when you feel like you're not allowed to have wants and needs, or you're just completely disconnected from those things for yourself at all, certainly you don't know how to ask for those things. And so one thing that's been work, but has also been one of the best things about this relationship, is instead of like making assumptions or wanting something and not asking for it and then being disappointed when I don't get it, if I want something or need something, I'm really trying to ask for it. Because that, I realized just how much I resented Jamie for a lot of things that I never told him that I needed, but I also didn't feel safe to express those needs to him. But that it just built up, and like anytime we would fight, that would all come out, and it would just be this back and forth of like, well, you did this and you did this and you did this, and things that would happen months ago that we would fight about, just because we didn't know how to talk to each other. And yeah, I think I had another one. Oh, just like how much I contribute to the things that he's going through. And sometimes, not even sometimes, often I'm like, if I'm being too much, or like if I'm saying too much, just tell me. And he's like, no, like I really appreciate the things that you say and share with me. And like, I think it's just like my opinions were not valued by Jamie. And so he did not really seek me out as a source of support. And I think sometimes if I would give that support and then he would kind of go along with the thing that I said and it didn't work out how he wanted it to work out, then it would be my fault. So it's just,
Yes.
There's just so many things. And like, I'm still at the beginning of this relationship. So it's probably happening more often for me than for you, but are there any of those things that like trigger an old reaction, but that's not actually what's happening in the moment for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, like even things that were very prevalent at the beginning of our relationship, that were triggers, still all like not often, but every once in a while it'll pop up and I'll have that moment of panic and I have that tight feeling in my chest and I'm like, wait, this is Regina, this isn't the other person. Yeah, but I mean, like especially when we first started dating, like if we were going shopping together, if I was driving, I would automatically pull to the front of the store to like drop her off. And she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm dropping you off and then I'm going to go park the car and then I'll walk in. And she was like, no, I mean, like she was like, we're going to walk in together. And I'm like, no. And I mean, like, it was ingrained in my head that was what I was supposed to do because that's what I had done for the last 10 years. And then we like to now make the joke about, should I cut her steak or not? And obviously the woman is very capable of cutting her own steak, but it was kind of expected of me at dinner to cut the other person's steak. And it was just like, I didn't think anything of it at the time because I just did it because I was like used to it. But the people around me were like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, cutting steak. What are you doing? And they were like, why are you cutting this grown ass woman's steak for her? And I mean, like, it didn't really register with me until, gosh, way after I got out of the relationship of that was fucked up. That expectation. And then like I would come home every day after work and I would cook and I would clean after I cooked, and then I would lay the other person's clothes out for the next day. I mean, it was like I was truly like a slave, a maid for that person. But at the time I thought it's what I was supposed to be doing. But like now it's like, Regina's like, hey, I don't need you to cut my steak. I don't need you to lay my clothes out for me because sometimes I think you're colorblind and can't match things. Or babe, that doesn't go together. But also it's just great to be in a relationship where I feel supported now. And we honestly ask each other for advice. And she's honestly the first person that I turn to every single time something comes up. Her phone goes off a lot during the day, especially while she's teaching. I know she can't answer, but I'm just like, if I don't tell this to her now, then I'm gonna have an anxiety attack because I'm not able to tell anybody. But she's truly the first person that I tell things to. And I mean, whether it's good or bad. And when I'm having my own family issues, she's the one that I seek advice from because I know that she'll tell me straight, like either, yeah, you don't need to get involved in that, or, that's fucked up or something like that. But she keeps me in check is what I'm trying to say. In so many different ways. She keeps me in check. When I'm in public and I'm playing around too much, she's the one that lays her hand on my leg and like gives a little tap, like, calm down a little bit. Or that's not appropriate. And then, but she also, she's the one that she's out there on the beach diving in the waves to get shells for me. And because I want these conch shells that are rolling up on the beach, and I have on like pants or socks that I don't want to get wet. And she's out there, knee deep in the water, diving in the water to get shells that I want. And I don't know, it's hard to explain. And people are like, you're just romanticizing things and trying to sugarcoat and make things seem like it's a fairy tale. But I think honestly, when you're in a healthy relationship, you're like, yeah, you can realize that the bad things happen and there are the rough days, but then you're like, I really am like very happy. And I truly love this person, and I know this person loves me. And she's the person that makes my heart laugh, and just swell with pride. And I don't know, it's very hard to explain. And I know that other people who are in their true relationships can kind of say the same thing. It's hard to explain what true love really feels like, because people think that you're just doing some like Hallmark commercial or something. But I think it's because we're willing to realize that, yeah, there's going to be good and bad, but we choose to work through the bad and celebrate the good.
Yeah. I think one of the things for me has been, and I talked about this with my old therapist, who I miss terribly. I'm not sure if I shared this on the podcast or not, but long story short, she sort of told me to go through this process of holding a meeting. Like I'm a very visual person, so like holding a meeting with all these different parts of myself, and decide who's going to lead the meeting and how, how long every person gets to talk. So what ended up happening is it was a very little version of me, an inner child version of me, who led the meeting. And like everybody just really respected her. And it was all sort of current versions of me with their own individual concerns. And one of the versions of me was so afraid of choosing wrong again. And what if the same thing happens? And I went through this whole process and I journaled about it. And one of the conclusions that I came to is that I felt like I had to convince everyone in my life that this relationship was different, but ultimately the person I had to convince was me. And
Right.
I think that's been one of the struggles for me is separating this is an old reaction to something that's happening right now. I was going to say something else. I want to ask you one more thing, and then I don't think I got a little rapid fire questions. And then we'll finish. But one of the things you mentioned a few minutes ago was with the whole steak cutting thing, and how to you it seemed normal, and everyone around you was like, what the fuck is she doing? Like, this person can cut her steak herself. And I think that represents how it can be when you are in a toxic relationship and the people around you can see what's going on. And depending on the level of whatever your relationship with them, they may or may not be saying something to you about it. But I want to know what it was like for you to watch me be in my relationship with Jamie and then marry him, and then, where we are today.
You know, I think it was a lot like whenever we first started being friends and I was with my person, it was like, okay, this new person in my life is in a relationship and I don't really know them or the other person that well. But then, we started hanging out a lot more after I got my relationship with Regina. And I got to know Jamie a little bit more. And I was like, okay, they're polar opposites, but sometimes opposites attract. I'm okay with that. And I think the biggest thing for me after you left him was I a bad friend for not seeing the truth, or you not being comfortable enough to tell us what was truly going on. But then I was like, you know what? I didn't truly tell people what was going on in my previous relationship either because I was ashamed.
Mm.
And so it was like, okay. And then after you left him, I was heartbroken for you because I know how tough that is, but I was also like, yes, this is the time that Amanda is going to empower herself. We are going to lift her up, and show her, you're making the right decision, and support you. And I think that it was really important for us to let you know that no matter what, we were going to be there to support you, and that since we did know at that time what was truly going on, that we were going to start calling you out on the bullshit and be like, hey, you don't need to do that. I love you, but that's not a good decision. Because truly I think that we're all the type of friends of we truly want the best for each other. And we're going to give each other the shirt off our backs, but we're also going to be real at the same time and be like, that might not be the best decision. Let's try to troubleshoot and, brainstorm about other things that we can do. But I think that it's easy for people in each other's lives to kind of blind themselves to what really may be going on with their friends or loved ones, the same way they do themselves, because they're trying to, if they think the other person's happy, then they're trying to support them in that happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people in my life did it because after I left my previous partner, and Regina and I were still friends, we stopped by. My parents were in Wilmington for my niece's ballet recital. She was in the Nutcracker that year, and my mom just hugged her and was like, "Thank you for saving our daughter." And we were just friends at the time, and it was just because her helping me out, and helping me get out of that situation I was in. And then after I told my parents that, hey, at a significant time later, I was like, hey, we're dating now. It was like, my dad loves her more than he loves me. So, and my dad did not even talk to my previous partner. So that was a big, huge deal for me. Was when my parents embraced her, I was like, wow, but as far as you and Jamie, I was there. I was going to be supportive. And we went to your wedding. We traveled to Virginia to go to your wedding, and it was a beautiful weekend. Like, the weather was nice, the trees were pretty. But in my mind, when I was sitting there, I was like, I really hope this works out because I want Amanda to be happy. But this guy's a douche. So
Yeah, I mean, this past week would have been our third wedding anniversary, and it was weird. There's still feelings that come up around that, and I think looking back is two things. Number one, certainly I loved him much more than he loved me, and
yes,
two, that weekend, like, the memories that I made in our wedding weekend were some of my happiest memories, but it was mostly because of who was there. And
right.
I had people from my childhood that were there and newer friends. And I was just very overwhelmed and felt very grateful by the group of people that showed up for me, and for both of us. But I spent more time with the people that were there than I did with him. I mean, even on our wedding day, besides the time we were sitting at our little table eating food, like, we weren't really spending time together. And
Right.
I didn't really think anything of that at the time, but I have no regrets. Everything has worked out the way it's supposed to work out. And one more thing I want to touch on before I ask these questions, because we talked about this when we were talking about doing this episode, is this having safe relationships is not just your romantic relationships. And, the friendship that I have with you and Regina, I know that I can reach out to you anytime. And I think you and I both have this back and forth where we're like, oh, sorry for always dumping on you. And it's like, it's fine. That's what I'm here for. But I know that you guys would do anything for me. And we haven't, in the grand scheme of life, we haven't known each other that long, but we've been through a lot of ups and downs together, not because of our friendship, but just in our life, we've seen each other go through ups and downs. And I think not just having a safe romantic partner is important, but having just safe people in your corner. And I think one of the main things that safety means to me is, like, I could come to you all with something, and then I can't think of an example at the moment, but if I were to change my mind about that thing, you guys would just support me. Like,
Right.
it's not, there is a certain level of, like, okay, call me out on my bullshit when I need it. But I think in safe relationships, the person on the other side, whatever sort of relationship it is, they trust you, and they believe that you are a capable human being of making decisions for yourself.
Yes.
They don't make you feel bad for making mistakes, and they support you in all the seasons of your life and no matter what's going on. And so I think it's super important to find those. And I believe that you can't find those until you have developed a certain level of safety in yourself, because until you have that certain amount of confidence, really isn't the right word, but until you have that certain amount of safety within yourself and sense of self, you're going to keep seeking out old situations that confirm the negative things you believe about yourself. So I'm not saying you have to be fully healed and perfect to find these sorts of relationships, but there has to be some sort of foundation. And it's funny because when you and I were talking about doing this episode, you mentioned, like, our friendship with Tiff as well. And Tiff was Regina's friend, who became your friend, who then became my friend. And even just over the past few months, she and I have gotten a little closer. And it's just, I think my brain has a hard time comprehending that people actually like me, even
Right.
even people like you and people like Tiff and like people who have shown me that they like me and they enjoy spending time with me. Because just within a matter of a couple of weeks, Tiff and I shared the pull-out couch when we had that weekend for Regina's birthday, and then a few weeks later we shared a room when we went on the cruise. And how do I want to say what I'm trying to say? It was just it was one of those moments where it was like, oh, people actually like me sometimes. And, for her and I to have become friends the way that we did, sort of through you guys, and then to be as close as we are, it's just sometimes it's hard for that to like settle in my brain that things like that can happen and people can actually like me. It's such a weird thing.
It is a weird thing. And it's something that, another thing that I've had to work on a lot in therapy, because all my life I've been such a people pleaser. Like I want things to be smooth around me and there to be harmony and people to get along. And I know that that's unrealistic. But I use my friendships and my home life to be the de-stressor for me. And I feel like that's the way it should be. I don't want the chaos that other people have. And they go to work because they don't want to be at home. And I used to be like that. I would get up and go to work like an hour and a half to 2 hours early, and I would leave work way late because I didn't want to be at home. But now I'm like checking the clock. Hey, is it time to go home? And I'm leaving at the very last minute. And when it's time, when I know that my friends are going to come over to hang out or I'm going to visit them, I'm like, itching to get out and like, let's go. I'm ready to see them. Whereas before it was like, I dread hanging out with anybody. I dread going home. And it was more of, I just want to be by myself. But and I still have those moments. And I think it's important for people to take time for themselves, even away from their significant other or family and stuff, and do some self-reflection and some self-care for themselves. But I think it's really important to have those healthy relationships with family and friends, and in a romantic relationship, it needs to be healthy as well. And I'm very fortunate that Tiff was Regina's friend, who by proxy became my friend. We clicked from the very beginning though, because the first time I met her was when we were all going on the cruise in 2016, and I was with my previous partner. Regina's with her previous partner, and Tiff and I hugged in the driveway. And then at some point on the drive down to Florida, we sat in the back of her car together because somebody else was driving, and we held hands. I mean, it was just like friends at first sight. And I have a very small circle of people that I am truly close to. And you and Tiff are in that circle, and it's become a lot smaller over the years because it's like, oh, well, these are the people that I know that I can truly count on, and no matter what. And like you said, support me in all seasons of my life, whether I'm going to go about a decision one day and then the next day I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. Or I don't like that anymore. And I know that you guys won't, but oh my God, you made a mistake, like, and drag me down for that. Whereas I've had people in my life that have done that before. They've held over my head like, hey, remember that time that you decided you were going to do this and it was the wrong choice, and now things are like this? Like, yeah, that's your fault. Like, I know that you guys aren't going to do that. You're going to be like, yeah, well, we all fuck up. So